Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Hawkins, Global Lead for Technology Innovation for Education in the bank. It's an enormous pleasure to have with us today colleagues from the ProFuturo Foundation, Alvaro Ros and Ana Delgado, who will share with us a very interesting experience around their work on shifting from one learning management system platform to a new learning management system platform. And what we found in our discussion with them is how very relevant their process has been to what many of our clients and ministries of education have been dealing with, particularly in this last year with COVID. And the movement to more and more online, remote, hybrid learning, and the need to put in place robust systems for being able to deliver content both synchronously and asynchronously at a distance. So the experience that we're going to be hearing today from Alvaro and Ana very much mirrors the same type of thought process and thinking that, again, our ministries will go through. So I think for both our colleagues from governments as well as our TTLs, this is a very rich experience, and the process that they'll be sharing with you is something that we should take. We'll be documenting ourselves into what we're calling knowledge packs to be able to share with you more broadly. But this is an opportunity for you to kind of learn from this experience and try to relate it to your own experiences in the countries you're working on. Please go ahead and use the chat to put a number of your questions directly into the chat. We'll have some presentations, then we'll open the floor for dialogue and discussions and questions and answers. So without any further ado, let me introduce, I think, Alvaro will be first. Over to you, Alvaro.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. So I am just the opening act. I'm going to, okay, let me see if I can pass on the slides. Okay, so basically we're going to, like Bob mentioned, we're going to go through our experience in selecting a new LMS. But first of all, we want to introduce you who is ProFuturo, who are we? Basically, our mission is to provide digital education for in low resource settings. So this means that we want to provide ready-to-use content and educational methodologies to support a better and more inclusive digital education in these areas where most of the time you don't have connectivity, you don't have, it's offline environments, right? So we are very focused on trying to get to those areas where you can have or not connectivity. And basically, we have been working since 2016. We were founded by Telefónica Foundation, which you may know, it's a telecommunications operator from Spain, Europe, and Latin America mostly, and La Caixa Foundation, which is a bank in Spain, and both have been committed to education and social projects through their CSR strategies. And ProFuturo is basically one of the main programs that they want to, where they want to reach beyond their natural footprint and go beyond to reach Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and you can see here we're reaching almost 40 countries around the world. With some of them are just small pilots. In some other countries, we are getting bigger results and reaching thousands and hundreds of thousands of children and teachers. And we want to be, we are completely aligned with SDG 4, and by 2030, we want to reach and benefit 25 million children in these vulnerable contexts in these countries. Our digital ecosystem is made up of different tools and solutions. So basically, we have our operational We have our operational tools, which basically are made up of our digital solution for class management, for in-class management, and offline and online, and our teacher training component and platform. Then we have what we call operational tools in terms of reporting, Salesforce, a central repository for gathering all the data, because we are data-based, we are data-driven, and we want to improve our program by learning through the pilots that we do and all that we do. We also have educational resources and platforms. There you have some places we have different solutions tailored toward children for learning mathematics, digital skills, literacy. Some of them are all have been developed by us. Some of them are third parties, so we integrate them in our digital ecosystem. We also have platforms for teachers, specifically Escolas Conectadas in Brazil, Educared in Peru, and also Digital Teaching Competencies, which is an online open resource. And then we also have a mix of resources for teachers and students to use worldwide. We are available, our contents are available mainly in 4 languages, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, and English. And let me pass the mic to Anna.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. So we're going to talk to you about the test methodology we used during our MVP testing. As Rob was saying, I think
Anna, maybe just a little introduction of who you are and your role in ProFuturo as well. I'm sorry, I meant to do that at the beginning. Go ahead.
Sorry. So my name is Ana Delgado, and I'm the head of product marketing, and I'm responsible for the end-to-end management of the digital solution that we deploy both online and offline in all those different countries that Alvaro mentioned. Our current platform, even if we talk about one single digital solution, is actually composed of 2 different platforms. We have one platform more deployed for the online environment, and other platform more deployed to the offline environment with no connectivity that we use. So the reason why we started this all MVP process was because we needed to overcome some challenges, and we wanted to look for a platform that was very easy to use. I don't know if Alvaro mentioned, but the ProFuturo focus is on K-12 education. So we're very focused on primary education, and all of the usability is key for us. The teachers need to be to have no training or very little training to actually go into the platform. The platform has to be very scalable and flexible, and we have to be able to include features in very simple ways. It also has to be custom made, so we can introduce all of the different branding looks and feels and all of the adaptations we need for this type of target. It also has to be robust, and it has to be a platform that has fewer errors than the one we actually deploy, because as you can imagine, in some of the schools we are actually operating, we only get to the schools every twice a month. So we need to make sure that everything that we deploy is actually very robust. And with all of the digital ecosystem that Alvaro showed you, it has to be simple for us to integrate third parties and make sure that we can actually get advantage of all of the different open educational resources that are available in all different languages. Even if we operate in 4, we're actually using loads of different local languages. And there is a key factor for us is that it has to be sustainable over time. So for us, we will mention it afterwards, but for us, it was really important that we could move into a platform that was open source and that it was unique. And the most important thing is that we wanted to make sure that everything that we actually deploy in this new platform, it has to be meaningful from a learning perspective, both for the teachers and for the children. And so, Alvaro, if you go to the next slide, probably some of these issues are some issues you've also found in some platforms that are already deployed. This one has been available for 5 years now. And one of the things we found during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we had loads of drift to the online environment, is that it's very important that it's scalable. And it's scalable from a software point of view, not only from a hardware point of view. Then there is one important thing. You need to make sure that technically you can do all of the development that you actually need in the platform, because sometimes when you kind of like get tied to a particular platform, in our case, we're using LiveRay, and if that doesn't evolve, it's actually very difficult to find the resources. It's very difficult to actually develop new features. The problem with the usability is, as we already mentioned, in our case, looking into the primary context, we need a platform that is very, very simple to use. And as I mentioned before, we actually have 2 different platforms, one for classroom management, another for teacher training. But it has been proved that it's very important for the teachers to use the same platform to train themselves as they're going to use afterwards to actually teach in the classrooms with the children. So the learning and the teaching experience are within the same cycle. So they're just kind of like change roles, but they're using the same tools, and this kind of like improves the learning experience within the classroom. So for us, it was very important to unify the platforms and have the same one. And lastly, also from a sustainability point of view, it was very important to go open source and to actually belong to a community of developers where people can actually get advantage of what we've developed to be a seed, and also we can take advantages of everything that has already been deployed. So this is how we started. Alvaro, if you go to the next one, I'm going to show you some of the pros and cons we found in the platforms, in the 2 different platforms. I'm not going to say names because I think this is more about the methodology and not so much about the platform we finally used, because probably depending on the target, the case, the country, and all that, the questions are going to be different. But we first analyzed what were the pros and the cons of the 2 different platforms. And on the one hand, we had this platform one that was open source. It has lots of default types of activities, continuous community updates, and loads of plugins available. But on the other hand, it was so broad that then we needed to kind of like make it very convenient for the ProFuturo system. So it has like loads of pros, but then it has this cons. And then we have this platform too, Alvaro, if you go to the next slide, that it was also pro. It was very much focused on the offline environment. That was something that we were looking very much, because most of the LMS are very used to work online, but not so much on environments without connectivity. So it was a platform that understood very well our context, and it was working on basic equipment that we mainly find in Africa. And it was really global, multi-language, with loads of different resources integrated. But on the other side, as the development of the platform was more reduced, so to say, some of the core features that we were looking in terms of planification, class management, massive online teacher training, it wasn't available. So if you go to the next slide, Alvaro, what we did is we actually developed 2 minimum viable products. We had a 3-month development period. And as you can see here in the 2 screens, the results, we actually got 2 different LMSs with minimum functionalities, but that actually let us go to our teachers and coaches and actually test all of the basic functionalities that we wanted to test. If you go to the next slide. So the main objectives of all of the tests were to choose a platform that the provider that could suit our context, to test all the ProFuturo end-to-end process, and Alvaro will tell you more a little bit about that, and to get real user experience. And it's important because we didn't want to make this decision by ourselves. We wanted the teachers and the coaches that are actually working in Africa and Asia and in Latin America to actually test the platform and do the choice by themselves. So the first thing we did was in our phase 0, before we started all this, we did a current satisfaction survey. Not only to understand if they liked the platform or not, but to understand what they were missing. And the funny thing was, in the satisfaction survey, most of our stakeholders were really happy with the current platform, but at the same time, they were highlighting all of the different requirements. So here, like the first learning point for us was ask the people who are actually using the platform if there's already one LMS deployed. The second thing we did was a user usability test. And so once we did the 2 MVPs, the 2 different platforms, we actually told our coaches and teachers, try the platform with no training, just try the platform, let's see what's happening. And the results were really, really amazing. Then in the phase 2, after we actually did the training, we studied the behavior. And I'm going to show you some screens so you can see through different tools how we actually worked. And the final phase was an instrument for systematic observation. So one of the main reasons to actually do this big change within the organization was that we wanted to fulfill pedagogical requirements that are basically related to evaluation, planification, creation of learning communities, collaboration, etc., that our current platform wasn't able to give us at this point of time. So all of the pedagogical analysis was actually really cool to actually get all of the insights from the education team. And so if you go to the next one, Alvaro, I'm going to show you, this is a screenshot of UX Army. I don't know if you used it before, but with UX Army, sorry, I'm just going to say one thing before. All of this testing in January 2020, when we started all this process, we were supposed to actually go into the schools and test the platforms in the schools. But with the pandemic, we couldn't actually travel and our coaches wouldn't actually get to the schools because they were closed. So we changed all of the process to a virtual living lab. This means that the coaches and the teachers were actually working with all of the tools we were giving them, but from either their homes or the school centers where they had internet connectivity. So at the beginning, it was a bit challenging because we didn't have kind of like the real hand experience of seeing what's happening with them. But on the other hand, we had the opportunity to use loads of different tools that automatically gave us the data, and we could process all of that data from an online perspective. So this is a screenshot. I'm going to show you some screenshots. This first one is UX Army. I don't know if you used it before, but with that we can actually evaluate all of the functionality and design and we can actually match if what the teachers and coaches are doing is what we were expecting from the platform to use. If you go to the next one, Alvaro, I want to show them. One of the things we did also was to record the session. So once the teacher was actually performing the tasks that we told them to do, we could actually see how were they proceeding, where they were clicking, how were they finalizing the tasks, and we could actually see all that afterwards. So it's a very useful tool when you want to do this type of tests remotely. And in the next one, Alvaro, I'm going to show you, we have for platform 1 and for platform 2 over 155 hours on testing, which is really valuable information. And there were two different indicators we used that you actually can propose when you do this type of tests. One is the SUS, that is the System Usability Score, and the other one is the NPS, it's the Net Promoter Score. And as you can see, both platforms, this one and the second one, Alvaro, if you go ahead, they got really good usage. And other thing you can see on the red side of the screenshot is that we were also checking what type of navigators they were using, and also how they were connecting to which type of platforms, either Windows, Linux, Android, mobile, a mix of mobile, desktop, etc. If you go to the next one, Alvaro, I don't know if you've used this tool before, but this is a behavior heat map. And what the heat map does is that as we design the screens, it helps us to identify where the teachers and the coaches are looking when using the platform. And this is very important because as you can see, we can see if all of the different elements are well organized and are easy to use for the final teacher that is going to use the platform. And we can see if all of the different activities we want them to perform, for example, class preparation, selection of content, selection of students, etc., are properly positioned within the web page. And I'm going to hand over to Alvaro, so he's going to tell you about the MVP test process and all of the people who actually participated in it.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm going to be very quick. So basically, like Anna mentioned, we developed the pilot in 6 countries. So one of the advantages of really the problem of the pandemic was that we were not able to test on the field by ourselves, no? Looking at how they were using the platform. But one of the advantages was that we could expand this pilot, this virtual living lab, to more countries now around the world. So basically, we were testing it in the Philippines, in Kenya, Brazil, Peru, Panama, and Mexico. So in these 6 countries, we were able to count with a mix of teachers and coaches, which are part of our implementation processes, that we hire local coaches that are specialized in coaching and training teachers and supporting them in the classroom, and also with continuous training. So these 2 profiles of people, teachers and coaches, were the ones that participated. In total, we had 215 users throughout these countries, and we wanted to test, like Anna mentioned, the whole end-to-end process of how we implement and how we use the program, right? So functional design, development, the infrastructure deployment. We provide the devices usually together with the program. So it's a holistic program that includes the provision of hardware, the training, the coaching, the support, the creating communities of practice, locally and online if it's available, and all the monitoring and evaluation system that we have behind with data analytics and everything. So we wanted to test everything. And over to you, Ana.
Thank you, Alvaro. So there is one important thing. We're going to show you the perception study now. This was we use a very simple tool, that was Google Forms. But if you go over, Alvaro, we wanted to show you. If you go to the next slide, yeah, it was something we didn't want the coaches and teachers to actually choose this one or this one. So there was a separate group of teachers and coaches testing one platform, and a separate group of teachers and coaches from the same country choosing another, testing another platform. And this is important because then the feedback is not contaminated. They don't have the feeling that they have to choose one over the other. They have the feeling that they're evaluating one, and they're taking the strengths and the weaknesses of a single platform. Okay, so this is very important. If you go over to the next one, in our perception study, we identified these needs for improvement that for us were very critical to actually define our requirements after all. The first one is we need to improve the process design, the usability and efficiency. And the tool actually needs to save them time. And this is critical because it's not the same an LMS for a university or a secondary school where sometimes or most of the times the students are actually self-consuming the content. Where in primary school, the teachers actually do a huge planification on what content and when they're going to use the content. So all of the process of planification, design, and implementation, it has to be very simple for these teachers of primary schools. Then the platform has to be super stable. It has to have no bugs, a huge, very good performance, even if equipment is not of a very high quality. So there has to be a good trade-off between functionality and the quality of the hardware where we're going to deploy. There's also one key thing is that the teachers need to create their own content. This is critical for us because as we work in Africa, there are loads of local languages, and the small kids, they start using English, French, or Spanish, or Portuguese when they're a little bit older. But when they start in first grade in primary, they actually need to start with their mother tongue. And the teachers it's critical that the teachers use their local languages to actually produce that content. All of the literals have to be reviewed to make sure that the platform is actually multi-language. And the changes have to be introduced gradually. We cannot come with a smash and say we change the platform from one day to the other, and we accept that all of the changes are available. So basically, from the perception study, what we got was that we needed a simpler, more stable platform, and this insight is what's really, really helpful. And I'm gonna let Alvaro go to the next one because there is the previous one, the change versus satisfaction. No, the next one. Sorry, but I don't have the control here. The MPS comparison and the SUS comparison. It's funny how the different group of stakeholders vary depending on their point of view, right? So the more you know the insights of the platform, the less usable or the less recommendation you actually give for it. If you go to the next one, Alvaro, this is important.
Just quickly, Ana, just to refresh our memories. SUS is System Usability Score, and NPS is what?
Net Promoted Score.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So Net Promoted Score. So basically, the NPS is used in loads of different products, platforms, etc. It's an index of recommendation. It's not an index of satisfaction. So the question they ask you is, will you recommend the platform you're using to one of your colleagues, one of your family or colleagues? So the way it works is if you actually give a score of 9 to 10, that's a plus. If you give a score of 7 to 8, that's neutral. If you give a score from 0 to 6, that's negative. So it's actually a very demanding index, because it really goes into the question if they're really satisfied or not. Because if you're very satisfied, you're actually able to recommend. So yeah, it's a score that it was firstly used for marketing outside. I mean, for products and services, but now it's also used internally. Like they can also ask you is how would you recommend your company, or how would you recommend your boss, or so we used it for this particular case as well. And this is the change versus satisfaction. It's like I can be very satisfied, but I don't want to change, or I can be very satisfied, but I want to change. So depending on the stakeholders, you see the stakeholder street is they're always out of the box, because they're the group of teachers that are kind of like more afraid of change. It's like I prefer to have something I know instead of changes, but at the same time, I want all of these features that I don't have now, and I want to change them so I can have them. And Alvaro, if you go to the next one, yes, here I just to show you the summary, platform 1 versus platform 2. This is like the summary. So one of the key insights we got as well is that we had some hypotheses at the beginning, and we had to fulfill and contrast with those hypotheses we actually put at the beginning. And Alvaro, if you go to the next one, this is what we talk about. That the change has to be very smooth. It has to be as little traumatic as possible for the ProFuturo users. And this is also a special challenge for us, because the schools have been closed for almost a year, and probably in some of the countries it will be also closed during this year. So when we go back to the schools, we will change the platform, and they will have all of this new platform to work with when they've been 2 years away. And this is the analysis we talked to you about, the pedagogical analysis, that includes all of the main features that were requested by our education team regarding context and planning, design and creation, implementation and follow-up, evaluation and closure, and a summary of globally. The evaluation part is really key for them, because what they're trying to do is really get insights on how the children are actually acquiring knowledge, not only using the LMS, or not only using or doing the activities, but really how much their learning process is improving. And Alvaro, I think, yeah, this is the same evaluation for platform 2. And I think I hand it over to you. No, sorry. This is something we did to define all of the different scenarios we were taking into consideration. So I'm not going to get into describing all of the different scenarios, but we evaluated if we should deploy, if we should change all of the schools that we have deployed, only change one part and go with the new schools, maintain what we have for the offline platform and only change the online one. So depending on all of the different scenarios we were evaluating, what we did was to analyze the different impacts within the organization, within the operational teams, and within the countries. And with that, we got 2 scenarios that were more suitable for the ProFuturo evaluation and strategy. So you can take this type of analysis and bring it to your own studies, because it gives you really inside information on the key features that are critical for a particular organization, ministry, or NGO, etc. And Alvaro, yeah, this is what I was talking to you about. And our final recommendation was to go back to those test hypotheses and realize if we could do everything we wanted to do either with platform 1 or platform 2, and put together all of this analysis from a technical perspective, from a pedagogical perspective, a financial perspective, and actually make a choice based on that. And Alvaro, from technological evolution, user experience, pedagogical experience, and data analytics, we made a choice that was also supported by all of the changes that have been going on due to the pandemic, and we moved forward with a process that had less complexity, and it was going to be with a better learning results for all of the organization, and mainly for the end users, the teachers and coaches, and the children that are going to be the key stakeholders to take care of, to take advantage of this change. And this is it from our side. We hope you find it interesting. I don't know
Awesome.
if there are questions.
Fantastic,
on the chat.
Anna. NPS of 10 to you.
Thank you.
No, I think this is super relevant to our colleagues and clients and ministries of education. I mean, for me, there were kind of 3 takeaways. Is one being very clear on your features and kind of understanding exactly what you want to get out of your platform. The issues you mentioned being simple, flexible, sustainable, scalable, usable. So the criteria that you want to evaluate. I think the other interesting thing is the user-centered aspect of the evaluation, that it wasn't just evaluated by your team in isolation. You got it out to teachers, and you got that very systematic feedback. And on the teacher side, I think this is interesting also because most of the investments that we've had in learning management systems have been at the higher education level. This is specifically at the primary level. And take the considerations you've taken into account on ease of preparation for teachers, the ability to create content, the fact that it's not going to break down, that it's not going to interrupt the learning process, I think is super interesting and pertinent. And then finally, I think just I think a lesson for us is that all too often we're rushed to procure, and we need this intermediate step in our procurement process with governments to be able to do this type of systematic analysis, to be able to narrow the choices down before we actually make the procurement. So I think this is a big lesson for our TTLs, that we shouldn't just think about getting the specs right and then putting it out to bid right away. There needs to be for technology this process of user testing and really thinking through what features you want, and then seeing whether those features are actually resonating with the user base that you want to reach. It might take more time, but at the end, I think we'll have a much higher satisfaction or NPS. So let me stop there. I know there are a few comments in the chat. I encourage anybody who wants to chime in to also kind of put their question in. I'm gonna go based on chat as well and call on people. So I mean, Ekwa, I want to call on you first to see if you want to kind of present your question. Ekwa.
Hello, can you hear me, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anna and Alvaro, for this very interesting presentation. I think it's very useful, and you did mention that, you know, here you're looking at more at the primary school level where, you know, a lot of the load is on the teacher to make sure, you know, the students have access to the right information and the preparation that goes into all of that. But even in the higher education space, you know, we come across several universities that have some kind of LMS, but still struggle for their faculty to use the system. So I think there's some lessons, a good deal of lessons that can be actually even learned from the process, the thinking process here into the higher education space. And now to my question, I was just wondering whether there was, you looked at both rural area schools, for example, if you take a place like Kenya versus urban schools, and what were some of the key differences that, you saw in terms of, through the testing, if there are some key indicators that stood out specifically. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's true. We work with rural schools and also with urban schools, but you see the difference is not huge because the urban schools we work with, they all also from really vulnerable environments. So in terms of the type of children we work with and the commitment of the teachers and coaches, there's not a huge difference between both rural and urban. For the Living Lab testing, for example, you mentioned Kenya. Actually, all of this testing was done during the lockdown. So the key difference, I think I will say, was that some of the teachers from urban areas were actually working from their homes, and the teachers that were connecting from rural areas, they were actually traveling to a point where they could have a better internet connection. But we didn't get different insights from both rural and urban. The type of schools we work with are from very vulnerable environments, and there's not a huge difference in that sense, only in terms of internet connectivity.
Thanks. Ekwa, does that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up? Okay. There were a few questions also from Ed Gable. Ed, do you want to present a question or two?
Yes, I'd love to. Thanks. That was an excellent presentation, by the way, of what seems to be an excellent process. Really, really, really impressive. My main question is just because it's clear, as you said, Bob, that this is a process that could serve as a model for country-based adoption, investigation and adoption of LMSs. And so I'm interested in knowing what the time frame for the overall time frame for the test was in terms of planning, implementation, and analysis, and also if you can give any idea of what the cost was, that might be helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, Alvaro, I was going to tell you actually what that is like. So as we did an end-to-end process, what we focused was on 2 months design. We followed an agile development process. So we were basically defining functionalities and implementing them so we could add value every 2 weeks. And we had 2 months conceptualization and design, and then 3 months of solution development. Then 2 months of user acceptance testing and infrastructure development, and then other 2 months for online pilot and development. And then all of other months for all of the evaluation reports. So as you're saying, this is very time and resource costly. Because you need to have the commitment of the organization to go through all this process. What was saying was really relevant because when we started all of this process, we actually evaluated 6 different platforms at the beginning, and we ended up doing the MVP with 2. So my suggestion will be if you have a budget of let's say 100, spend 10% 10% of that budget in doing an MVP. So then you're going to be able to actually take advantage of all of you learned during the MVP and probably reuse some of the development you did for the MVP as well. So from the total budget, 10% should be allocated to this.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That is a great idea, too, the idea that some of the development for the MVP can be reused for customization of the final product.
Afterwards.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
And to build on that question, how do you see kind of the ongoing investment iteration? Because it's not like you have this product and it's now done. You have to keep thinking about how to continually evaluate it, improve it. So this is another consideration that a mindset, I think, also for ministries of education, that you just don't procure a system and it's done and you wipe your hands, that it's an iterative process. So can you maybe talk to that a bit as well?
Yes. So and you can't do everything in 6 months either. So this is something we really work with all of the different teams within ProFuturo. So the way you work is you define a set of functionalities and you assign them a priority. And with all those priorities, you put live LMS, and then this LMS is all the time improved. For example, you can start with 4 languages, then add a new different language afterwards. You can start with 5 types of evaluation activities and then add 5 new ones. But what you need to have clear is that all of the minimum functionalities have to be there at the beginning, because otherwise you can't deploy. And the same I said that probably the 10% should be allocated to an MVP. At least the 20% of the cost of the total platform to be allocated for micro evolution and maintenance. So 25% a year of what you actually got for the first budget allocation. So if you spend I don't know, $1 million on setting up your LMS, you should spend at least a year $250,000 in doing all of this micro development. So you incorporate all of the different functionalities all of the different teams are requiring. So, I mean, they're like approximate figures. Probably one ministry will need 30%, another one will just only need 20%. But I think at least 25% is something that makes sense.
Excellent. Thanks, Anna. John, you had a comment in the chat, LMS unification of training, actual use in the classroom, such an important idea. Can you kind of expand on that? And I don't know if you have a question out of that as well, John?
Yeah, well, thanks. I really don't have a question around that. I just thought that there is real value in the practicality and the pragmatic approach that you had with this, and it's tying the LMS's selection with what is actually to be used for training. So I just really want to highlight that there is tremendous value in keeping that in mind from a practical standpoint. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Those are all the questions we had in the chat. Does anybody else have a question that they want to just chime in on now? I know there are a number of colleagues that are looking at platforms and LMS solutions. Anything specific to your countries that you want to maybe raise at this point?
Hi, Bob, Marcelo.
Hi, Marcelo.
I have a very specific question. I wonder if you remind, I'm working in Brazil, and Brazil is actually looking for a platform. They are very interested. I'm talking about the federal government. So I see that you say you piloted in Brazil. So I wonder if you remember which state or municipalities you have worked with.
Yes, Marcelo. So we work with Manaus.
Ah, Manaus. Okay.
Because,
okay.
Yes, and actually, Marcelo, in Brazil, Alvaro was showing to you at the beginning with our ecosystem. We have a project called Escolas Conectadas.
Sí, educación conectada, sí.
And that you have it here, Escolas Conectadas. We're gonna pass you through the URL. Actually, we have Escolas Conectadas, Escola Digital, and we also have the digital teaching competencies. So we're gonna show you those 3 examples because I think you're gonna like them. The Escolas Conectadas, for example, is a platform based on Moodle, and they're providing teacher training to 3 different states, and Manaus is one of them.
In Marcelo, in Brazil, we collaborate very tightly with the Fundação Telefônica Vivo, which is our counterpart over there. So they have been working with digital education for a long time, collaborating with municipalities and regional departments of education. And I don't know if at the federal level as well, but these are some of the projects that they have with specific platforms designed, for this project, which are for Escolas Conectadas for teacher training, digital teaching competencies as well, and Escola Digital is both for teacher training and use in classroom. And also, Bob, if I may take on one of the questions that I think Ed mentioned about our pedagogical model, I think it's important to maybe point out that we have a blended approach. So we are combining, especially more and more since the pandemic, of course, where we had to adapt to a new situation. We started out mostly as an in-classroom model, right? Blended model. So combining traditional teaching with digital learning through tablets, with the contents. So teachers can, and we train the teachers to use the technology and the digital education model in classroom. Then we also combine that with online learning as well, when that is available, of course, because we are focused on vulnerable contexts. So most of the time, internet is not an option. So we needed, with this new platform, and Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, we wanted a combination of all of that, of possibilities of work offline, combining teacher training and in-classroom learning management, as well as online training with more features probably when accessing online for teachers, for teacher training, and for students learning. I don't know if that, and all that is not self-directed per se. We combine self-direction and but mostly it's coach-led for teacher training and teacher-led for student learning.
Thank you very much, Alvaro and Ana. Very useful, and we'll continue the dialogue with them. And I think they should know these 2 tools that you described. Thank you.
Yeah, Marcelo and colleagues, so Ana and Alvaro and ProFuturo, I mean, this is an open process that they're kind of sharing the methodology, and we'll be kind of working with them to incorporate it into what we call kind of knowledge packs. And we're doing one on LMS that we'll be able to kind of share with you. There's also another work stream that we're looking at in terms of teacher digital skills and LMS, kind of combining what are the new pedagogies, digital skills, innovation skills that teachers require, and how you think about integrating those into an LMS. So those are 2 kind of processes, knowledge packs that we're developing. and we're happy to kind of do deep dives with any countries that might be interested on this as well. I think we have time for one more question. I think Barbara had a question around behavioral heat map. Barbara?
Yeah, hi. Really interesting presentation, Anna and Alvaro. Thank you. And it's so wide. My question is so small, but I'm so curious about how that behavioral heat map worked for you. And did it really lead to redesign? And just, you know, whatever you can illuminate about that would be great.
Thank you, Barbara. So it is true. If you have the opportunity to use them, it's true that you need a certain amount of users to actually give you very good insight. But this will be similar to, you know, when you go into classroom and you can see how people are looking at different sizes or at different sides of the screen, and they cannot find what they're trying to look for. And something you put within a menu, it should actually have a button, and something that should be highlighted actually should be up there. So the heat maps, they actually help you to get this insight. There are lots of different tools. There are some tools also based on webcams, so they can follow where you're actually looking. The heat map we were using was focusing on where the teachers and coaches were clicking. And we're going to start, we didn't mention that, but once we've actually started the selection process, we have now finalized the decision process, and we've started the procurement process, and we're in the midst of the procurement process. So the first thing we're going to do is a sprint zero. And in the sprint zero, we're going to define all of those screens, all of the design of the navigation. So we make sure the system usability analysis we've done during the MVP is applicable to all those screens. So it's not about just using an LMS, it's also about making sure that the front end you put on top is suitable for your target audience. And the heat maps give you this specific information that avoids failure afterwards.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. I mean, it's a little bit kind of a classroom observation tool for online to kind of get a sense of where people are spending their attention, time on task, et cetera. And I imagine this coupled with some of the learning analytics will give you kind of a good sense of what both teachers and students are doing in the environment. So thank you very much. Anna, Alvaro, do you guys have any final words of wisdom or final things you want to say before we wrap up here?
If Anna allows me, I would like to point out one of the key things that we were focused on when looking for a new platform. And apart from the scalability, the technical issues, the usability, and the need to unify platforms, one of the main things that we're looking for is especially the open source component, or trying to develop a kind of a global public or a product that was aligned with the global public good philosophies, because we wanted to make sure that we respect the do no harm principle, in terms of building a capacity and living a program be very useful in the long term for the beneficiaries, that they can keep on using and maintaining with a very low cost in terms of total cost of ownership. So I think that's one of the key things that we were looking for, and that is probably what other ministries of education are looking for. So I think that's one of the key things that this process helps us find out as well.
No, well, thank you very much. I mean, this is one of the key areas that just at a macro level, we're working with ProFuturo is development of these types of global public goods that could be open and applicable to any one of a number of countries to use and adapt. So again, thank you so much for a fascinating discussion, super valuable for our countries and clients in thinking about kind of how to analyze their own needs and ensure that whatever is procured is really meeting the needs of the users. So again, thanks, fantastic presentation. Thanks again, Alvaro. And we will again share this presentation and the knowledge packs will be coming as well. If you have any further questions, please send them along and we're happy to continue the dialogue after this. But fantastic presentation. Thanks again, Alvaro and Anna.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye.